Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another YouTube live here on Filipina American Creative. It is so nice to be back together with you to be able to share what is moving me. And that's what I'm really enjoying so much about these lives is the chance that I get to share with you the things that I'm discovering and learning as I go along my way. And I appreciate you being here. So thank you very much and good afternoon. Hopefully everybody is staying cool. I am in Arizona and I know that a friend of mine reached out and he's like, "Are you okay? Because I heard that there's like a heat warning." It's really funny because in Arizona, it is always hot in the summer. And so for there to be a special heat warning, I don't know why that is. Over the next several days, there's a particular heat warning, but we're okay as long as we stay inside and have enough water and stay cool. So all is well. What I want to share with you today is an exchange that I had over the last few days on social media, something that really moved me as it pertains to generational trauma and the art of decolonization. It's really interesting, these phrases that have come up that I've learned about over the last couple of years doing this journey of Filipino American creative. When I first heard about generational trauma, I was like, what the heck is that? And then when I first heard about decolonization, I was like, is that like a physical thing? Do we like is that somebody like going to somebody else's country and then like taking it back and then, I had no idea. I still remember specifically the first time I heard the word decolonization, and it was in New York City when I was interviewing an artist by the name of Becca, and she had talked about the decolonization that she was doing for herself. And I was like, what is that? And basically, these ideas are that there is specific trauma or negative things that have happened in our past to a group of people, and that pain, that psychological, emotional pain residue then gets passed on to the next generations because they haven't had a chance to heal it or they haven't had a chance to work through exactly what had happened. And so through just raising children or, you know, going through experiences together, we react a certain way, and that is taught to us through our parents, and it was taught to them through their parents. And it's like it starts from someplace, right? And if that isn't healed and if that isn't changed, then those things get repeated either subconsciously or consciously. And decolonization is undoing a lot of that learned behavior that happened when we were going through these traumatic experiences. In specific, in the Philippines, when colonization happened with the Spaniards, and then not official colonization with the US, but just the fact that there was a presence in this country that was not Filipino. This colonization happened and therefore left certain behaviors of people that experienced that directly that they then passed on to the next generation. And therefore then comes the generational trauma. And if you don't fix that or heal it or look at it, then it just kind of keeps repeating itself. And it's really nice to know that there is a large group of Filipinos in this day and age. A lot of them are younger, a lot of them are my age in their 40s, a lot of them actually are even older, way older, and are looking at what this is and doing something about it to change it so that it doesn't perpetuate and continue on into the future generations. Having said all of that, the social media experience that I wanted to share with you is something that I reposted on my Instagram story, which then ended up getting reposted to my Facebook story. And I was just so moved by this. It was a post that I had seen from Nat Geo, National Geographic, and I'm actually going to show it to you right now. So I reposted this. I don't know if you can hear me. And these are the subsequent posts that came along with it. And then the description of what exactly that was. So these beautiful photos they were done by Martin Scholler, and they are of the remaining survivors of the Tulsa Race Massacre that happened in 1921. And what struck me, first of all, what struck me was the beautiful photos that I saw. I love photos like this where you've got somebody's face really up close and they're just so in their natural, raw, emotional state. And I was really moved first and foremost by the photos. And then I read the description of what those photos were for, and I learned that these 3 photos are of the remaining survivors. Actually, now there's only 2 survivors. One of them who was photographed had since passed away. And these 3 people are the remaining survivors of the Tulsa Race Massacre that happened. They are currently waiting to go to court in order to gain reparations, and there was just so much destruction that happened, so many people who lost their lives during this massacre. And it turns out I guess I read that in a report that was done in 2001, it turns out that the city of Tulsa at the time had collaborated or corroborated, I think is the word that they used, with the racist mob that ended up attacking this group of people. And now there is a lawsuit in order to gain reparations from the city for that act. They are still waiting to go to trial, and I just, it's been 100 years and they are still fighting the fight. They're in their old age, and to them, this is still fresh. This is still needing to be resolved. Now, I don't know if it's because of the lives and I'm like talking about different subjects or what's happening, but like I'm getting different comments and reactions to the things that I've been posting recently ever since I started doing lives. And when I reshared this post on my stories, I got several different comments, but I got 2 very distinctive comments, and they were both extremely different from one another. The first comment that I got, which I appreciate, I appreciate any comment. Anytime anybody comments on something that I share or post, I'm just like, wow, that's amazing. Whether it's actually a positive or a negative comment, I'm just like, wow, thanks for taking the time to like actually write something. The first reaction that I got was, thank you for keeping this story in our collective memory. That meant a lot because I think it was just in honor of not of what it is that I did, but just the fact that they see the importance of this story being shared and being told. So if anything, kudos to Nat Geo for resharing this and posting this beautiful story. The second reaction that I got was, that was 100 years ago, time to move on. And I say it out loud and I still feel it. Like when I first read this comment, I was like in shock. I was like, I cannot believe that somebody would write this and, well, that would think this, but then also have the gall to like write this and send it. Now, I just want to preface what I'm about to say by telling you that I am not here to bitch about somebody or to say, oh, point fingers and be, I'm not here to moan and, complain about people, because everybody is entitled to their opinion. But the reason why I want to share this is because as upset as I got when I first received that comment, I really had to take a step back and realize and remember that that comment would have come from me not too long ago. And by not too long ago, I mean 2 to 3 years ago. I would have said probably something to myself very similar. I would have been like, it's been a while. Yeah, things are different now. We should just move on. And while I still believe in ultimately moving forward and not just cycling around the same hurt and the same trauma for the sake of doing it. Some people, because we're human, right? Some people, they have to do that. They have to hold on to their pain. But I believe that there is a way, when the time is right, to be able to truly and authentically and honestly move on from hurt and pain. Takes a lot of work, takes a lot of courage, but it is possible. So I'm not one to just sit on my laurels and go, oh yeah, I got hurt, so now I'm just going to be upset all the time and not ever let it go. So I understand to some degree where this comment is coming from. However, when I thought about how I would have said the same thing, I had to remember that this is okay, let me just back up for a second. The reason why this particular story about the Tulsa Race Massacre and these people who are still waiting for trial, why this touched me and moved me, is because it it reminded me in a way of the Watsonville riots that happened to Filipinos in the 1930s. So even though they didn't happen in the same year, they happened within the same sort of decade. And well, 1921 and 1930, they happened within the same like 10-year span. And you know, they were motivated in a way by the same thing. They were motivated by, here's a group of people, a race of people, here's another race of people, and one race is going after the other race because of prejudice, racism, socioeconomic reasons. You have what I want, or you're taking away something from me and I need to get it back. You know, it's just, and it's not based on anything other than the idea of you are of a certain race and I'm going to hurt you because of that. So there was a lot of like similarities that resonated for me in regards to what happened in Watsonville and what happened to the community in Tulsa. Now, what actually ended up happening, you can't compare it. It's like, I'm not comparing apples to apples. It's a very different, like the results were so different. Like 35 blocks in Tulsa were completely destroyed and burned. And granted, there were a lot of Filipinos that were attacked, but it just, I'm not trying to say, oh yeah, it's the same type of pain and the same type of grief, but at the same time, pain is pain and grief is grief and loss is loss. And so I think that there's a certain level of understanding of what that can mean to somebody that I resonated with. And so when I got this comment and I had to think about myself and go, okay, yeah, I get why I would have thought that as well several years ago. I had to really think about what I've done in order to not think that way anymore, what it is that I've done to change this sort of like, oh, it's been, 100 years, get over it, move on, to sharing the story because it resonated with me in terms of the strength and the courage it takes to be resilient in saying, no, this was not right. This needs to be repaired. And it takes a lot to stand up for yourself and go, okay, I think that this was wrong and somebody needs to do something about it, especially when nothing has been done about it or nothing has been recognized, which in many ways, trauma that's happened to Filipinos, a lot of it isn't talked about. A lot of it isn't shared in history classes. That is changing. But when I was growing up, that was not the case. And it still is the case to a certain degree. So I think that when we don't heal, or at least when we don't realize that healing isn't just oh, okay, it's been 10 days, I'm over it. It's been 100 years, I'm over it. Healing doesn't happen like that. Healing is coming from within, but also sometimes it comes from the outside, from the exterior. And so I think it's just important to remember that it's not so easy, especially if somebody hasn't healed, to just say, oh, move on. And I'm not saying this directly to this person. I just think in general, I think a lot of people probably feel very much the same way that this person felt in terms of, okay, please just let's get on with it. But at the same time, I really have to say that there should be a capacity of compassion for those who have not been able to move on yet, and what it is that they need in order to do that. And instead of just dismissing it, to ask yourself, what is it that I can do to help those who have not been able to move on yet? And what is it that they're trying to heal from? And how can I don't have the answers necessarily. I'm not saying, oh yeah, I know exactly what to do, but I think that first of all, there's the compassion piece, but then there's also the learning, the history, that it doesn't, that these things have happened and may continue to happen, and that we need to be aware of these things, because that compassion that I've learned came through learning my history. And I think that that's why, for example, my friend Caro, who is the founder of Vinta Gallery, why she has a campaign that is called Know Your Fucking History. because it is so important to know your history and to know where you come from in order to be able to make sense of a dismissive comment like that. Because I feel like a dismissive comment like that, like just move on, get over it, is actually generational trauma. I feel like that dismissiveness comes from someone dismissing you and making you feel small for how you felt about something. And so you just have to get over it instead of giving you the space to feel and experience what you need to go through in order to finally heal that. And finally, the reason why I wanted to share all of this with you is because I feel like it's an important part of what makes us Filipino is the idea of kapwa. And kapwa is the sense of being able to see yourself in the other person and that that person is also within you. And basically, it just means that we're all human and we all have the capacity to feel and have the capacity to be compassionate. We also have the capacity to all be jerks and assholes and hurtful. And so because we carry this understanding of I am just as capable as you are to hurt or help me, then we should take the responsibility to enact something that will help, I think, rather than hurt the other person. And for me, that includes having compassion. And it's so amazing. Like I'm going through this right now because like just several weeks ago, I was like, why don't I have more compassion for people? Like I was like, why am I such a jerk to this person on the road? And I'm like driving and honking at them. And I'm like, getting mad at the person in front of me in line at the grocery store. And I'm just like, why can't I wrap my mind around this? And then suddenly this happens and I get to experience this moment where I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's what it feels like to be so kind of like, it's all about me and I don't care what anybody else is going through. And just to remember that we're all going through it, whether you're Filipino or Black or any other race experience that you're having in this human body. So that's what I wanted to share with you. It's so exciting. Next week is Philippine Independence Day. Yes, June 12th, we are experiencing another Filipino Independence Day, and I may be in New York City. I don't know yet. I was actually supposed to be traveling this week, but that didn't work out, which is why I'm in Scottsdale at this moment. And yeah, so maybe next week I will be in New York, but that also means that I will probably be flying during the time that I'm supposed to be doing this live. So there will be a video of some sort that will come out at 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time next Thursday, whether it is me live or it is a video that is some form of live, but actually reposted or posted in its recorded form. And yeah, I look forward to sharing that with you next Thursday here on Filipina American Creative. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share it. If this conversation moves you in some form or fashion, please share it. It really does help gain exposure for what it is that I'm up to. And yeah, it just helps spread this thought of being compassionate and, just being a good person, I guess, is what the good thing would be to get from this whole conversation today. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Fil-Am. Goodbye.